Hello everyone, and welcome to 10 Ways to Boost Annual Sales Now. I'm Richard Jones, Group Editor of today's Garden Center. Spring is hitting early in a lot of places in the country this year, and that means more people in your garden center. But how can you make sure you're getting the most out of that increased traffic? Merchandising expert Terri from Color Results and marketing expert Laurie from the New Product Group are here today to bring you 10 tips to help you sell more annuals this spring. Tips you can put in place now for stronger sales tomorrow. Today's webinar will teach you to add value to your products and your store through correct message, staffing, and merchandising. Before we get started this afternoon, I'd like to take just a moment to recognize our sponsors, Winky Sunbelt and Border Concepts, whose generous support is making this event possible. We also have a couple of quick housekeeping items to run through. One, this webinar will be recorded so we can post it on our website, todaysgardencenter.com, for future viewing. That should be available within a week. If at any time during the webinar you think of a question that you'd like to ask Terri or Laurie, we encourage you to type it into the questions pane and hit send. Your question will go into a queue, and we'll have Terri and Laurie get back to you with the answers. So with that out of the way, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Terri and Laurie, and we'll get started. Laurie?
Thanks, Richard. I'm Laurie Scullin. Glad to be here. I just want to share this slide with you. This is my new favorite picture. This is from the New Yorker magazine, and it is a perplexed shopper. I love the look on her face. Her eyebrows are kind of in an odd moment, and she's looking at signs that say annuals, perennials, centennials, millennials, and I just think this is us. This is us in one little snapshot. We love our plants. We take great care of our plants. We do a wonderful job growing them. And then we just confuse and perplex our customers and shoppers all to heck. We speak Latin, we have complicated names and complicated designations, and often use teeny tiny tags to communicate that. So I think this is just the perfect slide to start a conversation about how to boost annual sales. And again, I tip of the hat to New Yorker magazine for having that. A couple reasons I think it's critical to talk about merchandising color. The first is it works. We've done a lot of market research the last couple of years looking at retail display space, and typically anytime we do a good job on an end cap, or anytime we do a good job packaging a plant with a pot and a big tag, that material will sell off the bench at about twice the velocity of the generically packaged and generically displayed plants. So, and often it's way more than twice as fast. The other piece to that is when we do the testing, we see we can get a lot more retail price for it as well. And that doesn't matter if it's a $2 tomato or a $20 rose bush. If the plants are well displayed and well packaged, they can get higher retails. And we run these tests over and over, every different part of the country, in all different kinds of retail spaces, and we see that over and over again. The second reason to think about merchandising color better is those gosh darn big box stores are doing better at it as well. You know, a decade or so ago, we could really count on those big box stores of doing a poor job displaying plant material. They wouldn't keep it watered. They'd have it all over the place. They wouldn't have it priced, but that's not the case anymore. For the most part, the group of them are doing a much better job. And there's also another factor, which is because they sell less things, they often just by nature color block better because they may only have one kind of geranium or one major color of wave petunias. So I think the two reasons to do it is it works well, and those other stores are getting better at it. The first place to start is in positioning. And whenever you're doing a marketing exercise, it's really who are you? What message are you trying to communicate? What position do you have in relation to a big box store? You know, what value are you offering your customers? You know, you're an outdoor living vendor as a concept, and how does the experience people have in your store relate to other experiences they can have other places? And then once you have this who you are part figured out, then you can start thinking about how then do I do the merchandising? How do I do the end caps? You know, really, what kind of style are you? It's really not what you're selling; it's really who you are, and that gets down to picking the kind of display you might want to do. And as an example, if you're a sort of an information factory, if your job as a garden center is to give a lot of information to your customers because they can't get that elsewhere, Well, then your displays might be kind of data heavy on purpose. You might put a lot of information on your signs. As an example, if you're more of a design shop, if you're the place people go to get good landscape ideas or good display ideas, then your signage and your displays are much more of that ilk. If you are the relaxing, tranquil place to come visit, then that might be how your displays are built. And if you're really aiming at new gardeners, if you're in a new subdivision or there's some construction happening, possibly you're more project-based with your displays.
Thanks, Laurie. I love this display. It's 5 easy steps to container gardening. If you want to plant vegetables on your patio, this is laid out simply for you. It just tells you, you pick the pots, you pick the plants, makes it really easy step-by-step information. And the only thing I would add here is that maybe, directly across the aisle, you have a palette of soil, you have, a palette of any other accessories that are mentioned, and the plant materials right there, so they don't have to actually, go searching for all the components. That you give them the information, and it's right there, easy for them to pick up. This is fun signage. This guy is out in Portland, Oregon, and his whole place is very whimsical. But again, I think we can take other ideas that might not necessarily fit the style that Laurie mentioned earlier, and then tweak the dial so that it works for us. I mean, you could say, you do a lot of school tours. Maybe, how many first graders does it take to plant an herb garden? And then you take pictures of the kids and send them home with the pictures, and, more than likely their parents are going to come shop with you that weekend, because that's who comes into mind when they think of plant shopping. Great display here. We're going to talk a little bit more about simplicity and that kind of thing later, but great. It's very bold. You've got these great ornamental peppers, but if they get shopped on a busy Saturday, it'd be very easy to flip another type of plant material in. Message for the display. After you have a handle on your overall position, then what are you specifically trying to do with the display? What's the message? Is it about the plant material? Is it about the color? So let's take a look at some examples.
Here at the main entrance into the greenhouse, we made sure we had 2 great end caps with great pops of color. Number one, people can see them from the other part of the store and maybe pull them in, but you wow them as soon as they walk in the door and slow them down. Usually when people enter a space, they're kind of on a mission, so if you've got great impact right here, you can slow them down a little bit and catch their attention. This display is all about value and bedding plants. It's one of the things that's a little bit tougher to display. So some ideas, you've got the lawn chair out here, somebody's sitting out in the hot sun enjoying their beautiful garden. It's stretched out full of color. Another idea I've seen this used is old beds. You can find them in a salvage place or something like that, and you've got your flower bed. Or you could do something with some sort of blanketing draped over a chair. Just remember, greenhouses get kind of icky and stuff, and make something that's going to work and not too hard for your staff. But it's all about color, all about value, and all about bedding.
Staff responsibilities. It's like anything else. If you get too many cooks in a kitchen, it gets a little bit wobbly. So if you've got somebody who's really good with displays, make that person responsible. Also let your other staff know that this person is responsible, because sometimes it's like everybody wants to get on the act, and somebody does a display and then somebody decides it just needs one more thing added, and the next thing you know, every employee's kind of added one thing. So, have one person that's responsible for the displays. And again, if somebody does it well, you're going to have pay for enough staff to do the kind of mundane tasks like watering, and free this person up to do more displays. Connect with the folks that are watering. Stuff sometimes falls between the cracks. I see this a lot with trees and shrubs. People tend to plop them over in the pot, so they plop them over here. then the pot people say those aren't my plants and I'm not watering them, and the plant people forget they're there. So, make sure that nothing falls between the cracks and we're not plant murdering and you're losing sales because they're not somewhere they're supposed to be. Also, a lot of times, particularly, if we bring a lot of product in to go deep in a display, or, we have something that particularly sells well, it ends up on the floor around the tables. This is cart bait. I always like to say women can't drive carts in garden centers, and I don't know if it's the size or they're too busy looking at all the pretty stuff, but you want to keep the plant material, pottery, statuary out of the aisles and from an end of inches, because it's going to get damaged, and that's not making you any money. Also have a small budget for props and signs. Props are easy to pick up, yard sales, flea markets, that type of thing. Have a place to store them so they don't create clutter, because a lot of it, is the signage included is reusable from year to year. And, connect your purchasing and your marketing to your displays. The more planning you do ahead of time for where something is going to go and how much you're going to buy, makes it so much easier to get the displays done, because you know exactly where they're going to go.
On the topic of planning, one of the things that's so tough for garden centers, and this gets back to survey work, is all our survey work says that people shop at local garden centers. One of the main reasons is because garden centers have a broad selection of product. Well, the dilemma, if you have a broad selection of product, it's sometimes hard to have a impactful display of just one color of something. And it's sort of the curse of this large plant selection versus those big box stores. And that's aggravated by the fact that end caps will sell through faster. So you've got sort of two things working against you on the product side. And so when you're thinking through end caps, thinking through display, you sort of have to get out of your traditional order flow and not order always what you did last year, and maybe instead of bringing in 3 flats of that red something, you bring in 15 flats so you have enough to build a display of it. It's really critical to kind of think through that you don't end up in this mishmash situation. And a good example is we were at a garden center a few weeks ago, and this was sort of the look of most of the displays. It was a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Visually not very appealing, and we were able to go through and on all those end caps build something a little bit different. On the topic of planning, also connect to advertising. It's so interesting right now with all the new online activities between Facebook and your website and e-newsletters and pay-per-click. There's so many more ways to advertise than just print and radio. And it's one of those good news, bad news things. Where do you spend your money, obviously, is the question, but also it can be so immediate. So it's possible, as you're going through the planning stages, if you know you're going to be doing displays of certain plant material, to really try to connect back to that. And one of the great things about the immediacy of the online space is that you can build a display, take a picture of the display, and immediately post it to your website or your Facebook page, so people know exactly what you have and they know exactly where to look for it. That's really a fantastic bit of flexibility, and again, something that other stores can't do as easily. Another thing to think about is on your vendor side. Typically, greenhouse vendors, they plan to have all the drainings looking good a certain weekend, but with weather and other things, sometimes they're ahead and sometimes they're behind. So work with your vendor to make sure that you can sort out if you were planning to have a big petunia display, but the geraniums are great this week, well, maybe the geranium display gets built a week earlier. So there's some flexibility required, but as you all know, it's so hard to plan for those crazy weeks of spring, but a little bit of planning ahead of time can really help.
Cross-merchandising. You build displays to sell both and hard goods. This is great cross-merchandising. Keep it simple. I like to keep it to 3 elements or less, sometimes even 2 or better. The simpler the better for a couple of reasons. It's easier for the customer's eye to take in. but also it's easier to maintain. So if it gets shopped on a busy weekend, you just either flip another pot color in or you flip another plant material in, and it doesn't become a project. Make sure that there's a logical tie-in. You know, wave petunias, rambling petunias love plant food. You know, time released and, you know, message about frequent water-soluble fertilizer. So make it an easy tie-in with your signage and with the product. You know, some patients like water, you know, with water wands or mulch. And a note here about cross-merchandising. There's a difference between cross-merchandising and using some of these items as props. If you want to cross-merchandise, then you want to have enough of that product that the customer feels comfortable shopping from the display itself. You know, maybe it's a mini pallet of, you know, soil, or, you know, take an oversized pot and put a whole bunch of watering wands in it. You know, with Papa Joe's or the organic veggies, organic products, you know, the organic soil or fertilizer, so that, again, you drive home that idea of this food is great and safe and healthy. Here we use the organic soil, but in this case with the 2 terracotta pots and the soil, this is more of a prop here than it is cross-merchandise. You know, the pots say, you know, eat fresh, eat healthy, which drives home that idea of, you know, organic is good for you. So if you wanted to cross-merchandise this, you would either bulk out more terracotta or bulk out the soil. Props, it should fit your position. You know, if you're, you know, more about information, more design-based, you might not want to get too whimsical in all of your displays. You know, props they're used to get the job done. You know, if you're design-based, more about, you know, lifestyle or home settings. If, you know, you're sort of known as, oh, let's go see what's going on over at that garden center, because it's just, you always, there's something that makes you giggle when you walk in, or it's fun and it's whimsical. Stay true to who you are. Not too many things in a display. Clutter is, it tends to ruin product and it tends to get stuff lost, but also it confuses the customer. We have a tendency in this industry just to want to add one more or two more things. You know, if you got a potting bench set up, you know, don't use soil and gloves and fertilizer and a hat and trowels. You know, maybe you want to use some trowels and a pair of gloves, something that looks realistic, but don't overdo it. If you're making your own posters, you know, there are gazillions of stock photos out there. Use that type of signage to connect emotionally with the customer and pull them into that display. You know, have some fun so that your customer has fun. The longer that they're there to stay and the more visual treats that you give them, the more they're going to buy. Here are some examples we did at a recent trip to Florida.
Great display. What I like about this is great bright colors with the Gerber daisies, use of fabric, fun chalkboard signage, and some signage up a little bit higher so that you can see it from a distance away. Love the use of drawers and crates. They're inexpensive at a flea market. They give you great elevation and give you some balanced asymmetry. A few things that I would change here. One thing I do want to make note, when you use fabric, somebody has to be responsible for it. Maybe it's the merchandiser has to take it home and wash it. Otherwise, it ends up being one of those yucky things that gets stuffed under the potting bench. I would probably have used a little bit different plant material, maybe something in white and red, so that the color story is a little bit simpler. And although these are actually really fun chairs, I probably would have taken the seats off of them so that we could drop some a pot into them. Great fun though, great bright color for spring. Great use of color here. This is a really fun plant, and the way it's masked out, you really have that interesting color block. Signage ties it in. Here you could also use some signage that talks about purple and, you know, the emotional connection to purple, because purple is one of those luxury colors, and it's also one of the most popular colors for planting in the summertime. They've also tied it in using the watering wands. Is one here, the watering can. We also use the shake and feed. that have the purple tops that kind of coordinates in. Again, when you use props like that, it is about the color, but it's also about, does the usage fit? Because one of the goals of display is to get the customer to buy more than one item out of the display. Not necessarily multiple plants, but some of the other items that you've incorporated in. So always make sure it kind of either keys in simply or appeals to the same aesthetic. Fun display here with the Corvinka, and the signage says, loves that heat. I love the fact that they pulled in the charcoal here. You also could have added a grill or even the little fire pots that a lot of garden centers are selling today, just to bump up that message of loves the heat. Great signage, great product, fun all around.
This was fun, although I call this the guy display. It's got the charcoal in it. And the idea here, it was a great idea, maybe, you know, a little complicated in the execution. You know, I would have put this up on crates or something to keep the charcoal bags from getting wet with your paper. But the idea of driving home that Corvinka loved the heat, it's a great idea. Just sort of think about maintaining and not destroying any other product or getting like really messy, because if these bags had gotten wet, it would have been an ugly cleanup. I love to use doors and old window frames or picture frames. They make great props. They're easy to paint, you know, to tie in seasonal color. So it's a really great thing to have around. Here they've used it sort of to drive home the idea, you know, you have a door and it goes out onto your patio, and they're showing patio painters. Here we used the little red wagon in the tomato tone, and in this instance the wagon and the tomato tone are more props. And normally I wouldn't have done this. I would have masked out the tomato tone so that it was shoppable. But these were actually the only 3 bags that they have. And also in that instance, I probably wouldn't have used them at all, other than we were trying to set some pictures. Because if a customer came in looking for specifically for tomato tone, you know, in with all the espoma, and I had the only 3 bags out in the greenhouse, then they may have lost a sale. You need to have enough for a presentation where you normally keep the product, and also if you're going to cross merchandise, mass it out. Another great thing about this display is that the signage is up above. It's not down in the plant material on a stand, so I can see it from a little bit further away, and all of the information is readable. Use of color. Color adds movement to walls or display. Red is stationary, yellows move towards you, and blues tend to recede. Colors can also add excitement displays. They can, you know, you can connect with your customer. You know, if my favorite color happens to be purple, and you get a, you know, beautiful just pop of purple on an end cap, I'm going to be drawn into that and have an emotional reaction to it. Here's some good examples.
Hi, I want to talk a little bit about this really nice display here. Great color impact, really simple, so it would be easy to change out on a busy weekend if you sold through a lot of this product. Another thing I do want to note is notice that all the pots are the same pattern or the same color. The eye sees neutral or lands on the brightest color if you mix a bunch of colors. So you want to stay in the same color family to make it visually easy to take in. One thing you could do differently with the signage here would be to sell the color. Talk about red and what an energy color it is, and connect to that person whose favorite color is red. Caladium, this is really fun stuff. It's got great texture, it's got great color, there's some dense coverage. It grows in sun or shade, so you can pair it with a lot of different things. What I liked about this display is normally I tend to block in solid colors, and a lot of times I would have thought to do this with just the red and do the white in a separate display. But this really worked with this sort of lovely blanket of texture and the mixed colors. So sometimes it's okay to step out of the box. Step back, take a look at it. If it works, go with it.
I like this. This is, they've masked out, this intense orange potting bench, and it was also between two tables of bromeliads. So when you walked into this greenhouse, this was just beautiful splash of orange and yellow orange and red orange, and it just was like, wow, look how beautiful this is. And orange tends to be a harder color to sell. They actually, with this display, sold more orange pots than the neutral colors that were in the same pot in the same size. So when you just give them that massive impact, it even encourages people that it might not be their favorite color to try it, because it's such, this in particular is just such a happy color. Avoid too many colors in a display. If you have too many colors in a display, the eye either sees neutral or it lands on the strongest color in the bunch. And if the strongest color is an orange or, say, a hot pink, and that's just not necessarily your color, you may miss that there's, a beautiful red there. So again, keep it to 3 colors or less. In most cases, I prefer 2 or even down to 1 for the strongest impact. In this display, it came in with the 3 solid colors and the stripe. So we actually color blocked it within the display. And you can take this a step further. Think about if you get an entire order of cyclamen in. Maybe that top riser is half white and half red, and say you get a lot of pink and purple, so you put the pink, and the purple on the bottom, split it half and half. And again, you're getting that impact. And it's not really that hard to do. It doesn't take that much longer when you're unloading a cart of plant material to color block it, because you know where it's going, you know whether it's going on this display or that. It just takes a little mental preparation and to remember, hey, when I'm unloading it, just keep it segregated by color.
Signs are such an important part of these displays, and again, back to survey work, whenever we talk to garden center customers, very high on their list of their needs is to get information, and that's why one of the reasons they go to garden centers is to get information. So this idea of a consumer just craving information is, I think, it's everyone's reality. Obviously, we have to have price signs up. That goes without saying. And again, back to those big box stores, they're doing a good job of it now, finally. So everything has to be priced, and sometimes there is conflict between price signs and your displays. I think our consensus is we'd rather have a ugly price sign than no price sign. So pricing is important. Look to your suppliers. I think we're seeing a lot of suppliers offer sign packages. I know the Wenke Sunbelt crew has a really good POP offering, and so see what's available. Also, the tagging companies like John Henry and others have materials that you can use, or you can make your own. Terry touched on it earlier. Stock photography is readily available. It's not terribly expensive to purchase and own a real nice high-resolution photo that you can take down to your local poster shop, and they can waterproof it and blow it up, and you can get a whole series of themes out of a series of stock photos that can really be personalized sort of just for you. Sign making systems are another opportunity too, and think through, are your signs all handwritten? Are they printed? Are they in script? Who's got the neatest writing? Who's the most legible? Do you want male-looking signs or female-looking signs? Even the type of script will skew you if you're more project-based or you're more design-based. And keep everything in balance. It's got to kind of, as best as possible, fit into that personality of who you are. Let's watch some Terri video and see how she talks about signs.
Hi, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Calliope display here. Some really great things about it is we have some signage that's up high and visible from a number of feet away. We have a very simple color story that makes the message really simple and easy for a customer to take in and understand. Also, really love using chalkboard paint. It's easy to change the sign out, inexpensive to make, and kicks it up a notch, makes it a little bit different from your normal signage. A couple of things that I might change here is with the Miracle Grow here. I'd add a bigger presentation of the fertilizer so that if it's shocked, we still have product there. The other thing I want to mention is when using pottery or statuary or something in a display, you want to keep them in the same pattern or the same coloration so they all blend in really nicely together. Again, very strong, simple color story, easy for the customer to take in. Great vegetable display. Vegetables are one of my favorite things to display because they can just go on and on with ideas. Terracotta is a national tie-in. We were talking about organics here, and I love this little freckle-faced kid, and the fact that conveys the message that you have kids eating healthy food that are grown fresh, and you can teach them how to cook. We tied in the tomato cages. The green and the red tie into the color of the signage. Moving on down here to some basil and sage, but we also brought in organic potting soil just to reinforce that organic message. More great signage, nice and bright. Also, there's some terracotta pots here that have eat healthy, eat well, grow organically written on them in chalk. Terracotta, again, is a natural tie-in, easy to do, chalk comes right off.
Terry mentioned using chalk and chalkboard, and you saw it in the video. I'm amazed what you can do with chalkboard paint. These two terracotta pots we actually could have painted, although as Terry has warned, once you paint a terracotta pot with chalkboard paint, don't water it, because the water will take will make a mess. But this was so simple, just taking some chalk and writing right on the terracotta. I had fun watching the display be made. I had as much fun watching customers stop and read the pots. So again, the signs are just so important.
Staff training. Can talk to your staff about merchandising products. Because again, if they're educated on what the message is on that display, they can continue that throughout the sales process. Plus, they sort of also, understand to not add stuff, or to, again, be careful watering so they don't erase the chalk off either chalkboard or the terracotta pots. But, why is this product featured? What's the pricing? What's your culture? How do we incorporate that in? And also the QR code support. I find that there's a generation of customers that are very familiar with it and very comfortable with using it, but there might be a segment of your customer base that doesn't even know what it is. So maybe some signage placed strategically throughout where you explain in 3 easy steps what it is, how to download it to the application to your phone, and what it's going to help them with. Because I think sometimes people see this stuff and they're a little intimidated to ask for fear of, appearing sort of not with it and not up on technology. But I know a lot are, my 70-year-old mother has an iPhone. So, this would be something that if she was informed about, she might use. Have some fun. Displays, they don't have to all be serious. Even if you're more information-based or more lifestyle, a fun display here and there, if it's comfortable for you, then it's going to work. But, there's like a new plant out there called Twister, and, why not have a 3-ball topiary and put a poodle skirt on her? Also, or get a couple of pink hula hoops and hang them over the display. Again, it's simple, and it's going to catch somebody's eye. And I think there's some other examples coming up here.
Hi, we're talking about this great display here of sun pations. We got our 2 ladies here hanging out in really hot afternoon. They got their cooler, they got a few beverages, and they get beautiful color in the garden. So again, this takes home that story of that these are great out in the sun, connected, fun props. 2-ball, 3-ball topiaries are one of my favorite things to use and display. You can put hats on them, give them glasses, you can put shirts on them, you can dress them up as little people, and it's usually product that you actually have on hand. Great fun. fun display. Got this idea for any of you who were at OFA. They did this, but they did them with the bright colored dram garden hoses, and they actually tied in the plant color to the color of the garden hose with watering cans and other things that tied in, and it had just a powerful punch of color. The kids' chairs and watering can keep it really simple, make the message really easy to see. Also close by, we've talked about container gardening and including the same plant material and some cyclamen here to show that you can bring it indoor and out. Nice full containers. A lot of impact in a little amount of time. In other words, I want it all now. So immediate gratification with full containers. And they also, all of these like it cold.
This is a fun display. As I mentioned, this was one that I saw at OFA. But another key note to remember here is look how simple it is. Just the lobularia is here. And, you know, on a busy weekend, we don't have a lot of time. You don't need to be messing with displays, and it doesn't need to look shabby and wait for Tuesday to be fixed. So this would be really easy if you sold through a lot of this, to flip out this plant material and flip something, either another color in, or you know, if you hadn't backed this up, you know, add another type of white plant material. Also a note here, this is sort of a good example of cart bait running down along under the front there. You know, be careful, we don't want people running over it and being plant murderers. Ten ways to boost annual sales now. Position products in you. You know where you're going to put these displays so that they have the most impact on your traffic flow. Messages to support what the type of plant material is and what what you want the customer to get. Make sure the person who's doing the merchandising is in on the game plan, and there's really one person responsible for that. Plan around the product. Plan where you're going to put it, what the product is. Tie it into your advertising, tie it into your signage, tie it into your websites or your Facebook accounts. And again, as Laurie said, the idea that, I think sometimes we forget how quickly we can have impact. Take a snapshot of that great display and put it up on your webpage or send it out in your weekly newsletter. Remember, cross-merchandising is about getting somebody to buy more than one item out of display and keeping that aesthetic the same or the purpose simple. Fertilizer, with a particular plant material, or those watering wands with, plants that love the water. Remember to use props to intensify color or to convey a deeper, convey that message on a deeper level. Just layers and layers and keep it simple. We're in the color business. Use the color. And if it's not quite in color, maybe paint a wooden door or, paint a window frame or a picture frame to deepen that color and pull the customer over. Signage, I think, is one of our most underused tools in this industry. It's sort of, it falls to the bottom of the list. And it really can connect, convey your image. It can be used for branding and emotional connection to your customer and pull them in the display. It's just so important. Laurie mentioned pricing earlier on your signage. Think how much more your staff could sell if everything was priced and they, instead of having to answer how much is this, they could actually be selling more product than just answering that one question. Train your staff. What's this display about? Is it about, heat-loving plants? Is it about hummingbirds? And if you take just a couple of minutes, maybe, each week or every couple of days, and get those part-timers on the page with what this display is about and what the idea is driving home. So if somebody's looking for a hummingbird garden, they know right where to send them. And have some fun. Display shouldn't be intimidating, and it doesn't always have to be perfect. The more we do it, the better we get at it. So have fun and encourage your staff. And if you have to, correct gently. Just encourage them to go to the next level.
Well, Terri and Laurie, thank you. That was really good. Right? We got a ton of great ideas that hopefully everybody can take out and put into action here right away and are going to make a big difference in annual sales this spring. I've got a couple of questions based on some of the things you talked about. Terri, you showed some great examples of displays that you can build, but you talk about keeping things fresh. How long should a display stay up?
I'd say, depend, and again, this goes back to a little bit to planning and availability on plant material, but I would think a week to 10 days max, and that's if we have a couple of rainy days in there. But you should be able to turn these pretty quickly. They shouldn't take you a lot of time to build. Keep them simple. Also, if something isn't moving, particularly if you go over a weekend for 3 or 4 days and it just doesn't seem to be being shot, take it down, come up with another idea. Because the idea of merchandising is to make it turn quickly. So just keep an eye on it and really pay attention. Great,
thanks. Laurie, you talked a little bit about this, and Terri mentioned some marketing ideas too with websites and things, but I know you know a lot about social media as a marketing professional. Could you tell me maybe some ideas that you could use with social media in conjunction with some of the displays that we looked at today?
Oh, actually there's too many. There's too many opportunities is the problem. I think, in fact, Terri talks about her mom with her mom's iPhone is just the best example. QR codes. Use QR codes for your staff. I mean, we have this issue of training everyone who's working at the garden center. If your vendor does a good job with QR codes, then QR codes point to information about those specific plants. Make sure your staff has the right tools and maybe a smartphone or two amongst them so that they use the QR codes themselves so they can get more quickly up to speed on some of these hot new plants. There's an idea. Being able to post instantly, the idea of building a display, getting it up on Facebook that second so your customers know that A, it's there, the fresh plants have just arrived, B, the fresh, beautiful plants are going to be easy to find, and C, I even know what to look for because I've seen a display on your Facebook page. An amazing opportunity. I know a lot of garden centers are a little bit nervous about Twitter because it's the most terrifying of all the social media for people of a certain age group. But the reality of Twitter is the most immediate link to customers, and your customers are hungry for information. They want the freshest possible plants. They want to know what's going on, and what people don't like in social media is when you're trying to sell me stuff. Come in this week, everything's 10% off. Come here and buy stuff. We don't want commercials, but what we do want is information. And the fact that we have the hottest new geranium called geranium calliope, or we have these cool impatiens that do well in full sun that we're not used to using, but they're here and they're real special. You can tell stories, and that's what we like. That's why we're using social media so much, is for storytelling. And it really can help complete. You build the display, you have the plants, and then you use social media to tell a story about that. It's just a wonderful way to really connect with customers.
That's great ideas. Terri, you showed some great examples of using props in displays. I think you do a good job of showing that just about anything could be a prop if you look at it the right way. But I guess one of the side effects of that might be that your customers might come in and like them as well and maybe want to buy them. Do you ever suggest selling your props?
Well, I'm sort of old school retail, and everything is for sale, even some of the employees if somebody wants them. But so, if you have interesting props, and some people get very attached to stuff, and, they don't necessarily want to let it go, it should be for sale. Just put an outrageous price on it, which is going to be almost pure profit, and sell it. And hopefully, you make enough money on it that you can go out and buy 3 or more things that are just as much fun. But yeah, it's always sellable.
Well, that wraps up our webinar for today. Once again, we would like to thank our sponsors for today's event, Winky, Sunbelt, and Border Concepts. We really appreciate their support. As a reminder, this webinar will be posted for on-demand viewing at todaysgardencenter.com. Thank you all for joining us today, and have a great afternoon.